In my last video, I already expressed my views on protests in general, and since there are more than enough people covering them, my focus is more so on what has been going on with a particular category of people at these protests. But I will address that in a minute. The protests have become global, and so I don't see them as a momentary thing. I see them as a stepping stone to the people finally finding their voice and realizing that they indeed can empower themselves. Once we as a collective recognize our aptitude, there is no going back. This is only the first step. As people are now realizing our potential, we will then learn how to starve the system that has starved us in even more effective ways. Later. Safety and peace is first and foremost, and not to let anyone break the attempts at maintaining consistent calm. Just like Fox News was heckled out of the protests for their lies and belittling of the protesters and left with their tail between their legs, so should be anyone who tries to incite violence. For if it comes to violence and looting due to some bad apples, they will shut the protest down by any means necessary and with pleasure. Many people ask, well, what is their point? What is their main focus? They need one thing to demonstrate against. This is not so. The people are suffering in many ways due to the demolition team of the rulers of the world that ruined everything they touched. So why should people's ideals be organized and neatly filed under only one category? People are fed up with everything, and so it has erupted into what it has. If you're so bothered by it, offer a better solution. Stop trying to demonize these people by calling them terrorists, anti-American, hippies, children, or people that don't know what they want. At least they're doing something. The protesters are from all walks of life, but the media will most likely only interview ones who don't know how to express themselves effectively yet. The biggest joke I read in comments about protesters is, "Stop being lazy and get a job." Those commenters undoubtedly are from another planet, as lack of employment is one of the most colossal reasons of all that the people are there. Okay, my main focus at this time is on this group here. To police officers around the world, you were average citizens of your cities, states, and countries before you became officers of the law, and will once again resume your average citizenship upon retirement. That is very crucial for you to remember, because if the people's voices are heard and catered to, finally, you also will reap the benefits of what they've done, whether the behavior of some of you warrants it or not. Thus far, the only group of people that have been witnessed being violent through media and all the videos surfacing on the internet at these global protests, and which have recently sprung up in America in the last month or so, have been the police. At most, the only main thing some of these protesters may do to cause you to react is go past a barricade line or walk in certain areas that are off limits, only because you keep them confined to such narrow perimeters. That, with good reason, is very frustrating for them. Your response to this, however, is overkill. Surrounding people with nets like they're wild animals, macing people, baiting and trapping people on the Brooklyn Bridge, hitting people with billy clubs, running horses into crowds of people, dragging people across the pavement and in the streets, punching women in the face, beating on unarmed citizens who are only exercising their constitutional right to peaceful protests. Even if some of these people mouthed off at you, they don't deserve to be beaten. Your behavior is oh so deja vu of those officers from the civil rights movement era. Only, where are the water hoses and the dogs? That's just about the only thing missing. It is, at the same time, amazing how so many people are in awe of the treatment they are receiving at the hands of these police officers in America at these protests. It would be in your best interest to realize that no one is immune or as privileged as they may have been misled to believe in the past. Remember, whenever anyone turns their back and thinks it's okay to allow it to happen when it's only affecting a certain group or race of people being treated this way, they are saying it's okay to happen to them too, eventually. Despite that, it doesn't make police officers' actions justified in the past any more than it does in the present. People have to learn to stand up together immediately when injustices are perpetrated against anyone instead of only when it happens to them. If not, history will repeat itself again and again. Moving right along. From my youth up to current events transpiring around the world with you police officers of the law who were sworn to protect and serve your fellow citizens and whose actual paychecks come directly from said citizens' taxes, your atrocities have only become worse against the public. For ages, you have gotten away with crimes and murders that were unnecessary. There have been cases brought against some of you in a court of law where everyone, including yourselves, the judges, and even your own lawyers, knew very well that you were guilty and should have been put in jail for your crimes. But 99% of you get off with a slap on the wrist, if that. You don't get away with it just because you can. You are allowed to get away with it because the system wants unrest and division between the people and the law officials. You are even encouraged to break the law by those in charge of you. To arrest people under false charges just to meet a quota or during election time, to benefit whoever is running or the favorite person running at that time. You are taught to harass citizens of certain ethnicities and to stop them often for no reasons. There are even videos proving this from some officers attesting to it themselves. I am not telling any of you anything you don't already know. The list goes on and on. Yet, have any of you ever questioned this and wondered why you are being instructed to be corrupted? Or to be corrupt, excuse me. The harsh tactics used at these protests or in your general everyday run-of-the-mill crime fighting are also not always your decisions. Most of you officers don't realize that you have been set up just as much as we the people have. And right now, many of you can't see the forest for the trees or the bigger picture, if you will, of what's really going on. However, all this division between you, the officers, and the people is by design. Designed so that it breeds hatred and mistrust against you by the very people you are supposed to be protecting and also be a part of. The same way people have been taught to be divided amongst each other based on color, religion, their station in life, and the haves and have-nots. Please ask yourselves this. How far are you willing to turn against your fellow citizens? For instance, what if they start demanding the protesters to disperse and go home and want to put a complete end to it? And let's say the protesters refuse to go. If ordered to do so, would you start shooting down your fellow citizens in the streets? What are your limits to taking orders, if it came to that? Perhaps our military abroad need to realize the real war is being waged back at home against the citizens, which is the real location where our freedoms are being threatened, and from the ones physically harming innocent citizens. Granted, many of you officers may be resentful because you don't make enough money. Most of us cannot blame you there. If most of us had jobs as officers and had morals and put in our lives on the line every day and didn't know if we'd make it home to our families or not, just for the small salary they pay you guys, we too might be resentful. But look at this. Sports players earn millions running up and down the field or a court playing with the ball. There are people on stage singing, making millions. And of course we have actors and actresses making millions for just pretending to be someone else. Yet, many of you police officers are some of the biggest sports fans in the world, and of TV in general. I know in my heart, if you were paid what you are worth, that most of you wouldn't be corrupt out in the streets and doing what you do in the dark to make ends meet. Due to the dangers involved in your line of work, you deserve to make much, much more than you do if you are performing your duties with dignity. One thing I will say is you officers do seem to be set for life after 20 years when you are able to retire as far as pension amounts can go and stability. But in this shaky economy, not even that is guaranteed by the time most of you retire. But more on that later. It's not only entertainers, there's average citizens who make more than most of you officers sitting safely behind their desk jobs. Many of you resent these citizens, and even a few short years ago, a new group of rookies in New York had to apply for food stamps to compensate for their salaries in order to survive, when the starting salary was like $20,000 to $25,000 a year. That is your fault, however. You should be demanding to be paid what you are worth due to the risks. The daily possibility of getting killed in the line of duty is much like playing Russian roulette, and way worth more than $44,000 through $90,000 a year most of you will receive starting out and by retirement. With all going on around the world, you are against the wrong people. You too are part of we the people, and we have all been systematically turned against each other. One day, when you all become ordinary citizens again, and you will see how worthless you are as a human being to the system, just like the rest of us have been shown and learning now that we are. You already are now, you just don't see it yet. But once they finish using you, as the thugs and goons they've conditioned and encouraged you to be, just so they don't get their own hands dirty, they will spit you out. And the size of your pension, if one still exists by then, will force you to go out seeking a job in your golden years in order to survive and find there are none. Only then will you see and feel what the protesters are doing. Only then will you feel like the war veterans that were thrown in the back of those police paddy wagons felt at the Boston protests, who, by the way, were also sworn to protect you as well as us. Hopefully, that treatment will show anyone considering joining the military what kind of treatment they will be subject to when their service is over. Most soldiers returning home have already found out what a thankless job it is when they don't receive help when they get back, and also, to their dismay, realized that the reasons they were told they were abroad fighting was not always the case. I beseech you guys to start doing your homework and see the writing on the wall. In one of the cities in Rhode Island, they have already given their police and firefighter retirees 2 options with regard to their retirement, and they are as follows. 1. Sacrifice up to 50% of your pension now, or risk losing it all together later. Coming soon to a city and state near you. Don't believe me? Well, see the link below the video. Most of you are now engaged in a one-sided and unfair war with your fellow citizens, and that makes you at war with yourselves. So ask yourselves, who are you serving, really? I am not naive to the fact that some of you enjoy being bullies, and so you will join the police force to abuse your power. So that particular type gets off on harming others anyway. In New York, some of you police officers are going off on the citizens at these protests as though you think and feel some of that $4.6 million that J.P. Morgan donated to the New York City Police Foundation are literally going to find their way into your pockets as cold hard cash. Newsflash, it's not. Other than some extra overtime pay, which is as good as fool's gold in this current economy, all you're going to get is perhaps some upgraded equipment and new police cars. That is a slap in your faces. It's toys. JP Morgan is looking out for its own interests, and that's that. I don't know how any of you who commit violent and deadly acts over the years and now against your fellow citizens, knowing what you've done to unjustly harm others, including murder, without feeling haunted in your thoughts and dreams. Straight talk. Any officer who protects each other when they've committed a crime due to your blue wall of silence or blue code of silence are no different than the street gangs who have their own code of silence, nor the fearful citizens who are afraid to expose crimes they witnessed, though you have no trouble trying to make these people break their codes. Set an example. Your police system is no better than the system or elitists that run this world. They're probably one and the same, but regardless, you must take a stand. If the rules of engagement in being a police officer does not align with your values as a humanitarian, then perhaps your career choice was not beneficial to you. Because when you witness your fellow officers doing something against the law and cannot turn them in for fear of being called a rat, or having them turn against you, harm you, or even kill you, then you are just as guilty as they are for keeping your mouth shut. If that's who you are, well then, welcome to the forest. I haven't had any negative experiences with any police, but I've personally witnessed plenty of injustices against others with my own two eyes, and know many who have had uncalled for run-ins with them. On the other side of the coin, I have encountered many helpful and decent police, so please do not think I am addressing or covering you all under one blanket. If the shoe doesn't fit, take it off. I am not addressing you. The rest, in the meantime, need to earn back the trust and respect of the citizens and do their job with self-respect and pride, and be a hero to the people. Our rights, or what little we have, should not be infringed upon by you or anyone else, and you are supposed to have access to these same rights that can just as easily be infringed upon by officers of the law against you once you become an average citizen again. I know a lot of you are only doing your job and what you are told to do, but at what cost? Please think about it. You are not overseers on some plantation. You are part of us. When you no longer are an officer, all your privileges are gone, and you may too one day find your head being introduced to the tip of an active police officer's nightstick. Remember that. You need to all come together and call for a revamping of your policing system. It is not working for you or the public. It is, be that as it may, serving the very ones that are oppressing all of us, including you. You are very much needed in this world, but not the way most of you are now. If you have any humanity, refuse orders to do harm to your fellow citizens, and please come together and demand change from within your policing system. It's because you too have not spoken up when your system became corrupt that most of you are in the predicament you are in as well. The time is now. Peace, love, and elevation to you. Namaste.